All right, thank you for staying with Kenya's Choice 2022. We're still talking about the MCA's mandate. I've seen some of your questions online. We'll pose them in just a bit. Honorable Judy Oyugi is still with us, former MCA East Assemble, that's in Rarieda, and also former Deputy Majority Leader in Siaya County. Gade Wanjeri is here, MCA-elect for Gaturi Ward, that's in Kiharu, and Conrad Bosire, Devolution and Governance Expert, is also still with us in studio. And Honorable Yugi, there's something we were bantering about with Conrad before we went for the break, where he was saying that their priorities somehow needs to be aligned. Having been there before, what is stopping the priorities from being aligned? Because you're the one who said earlier on that sometimes the priority of the department is different from the priority of the ward. Why can't they be aligned?
Thank you, Trevor. In an ideal situation, if the priorities of the executive and the assembly were aligned, that would be perfect. But the reality is that it is not. And it's very rarely will you find it being aligned. Just the same way I said earlier, each department has its own priorities, and most importantly, the priorities of the mwananchi from the ground. We have what we call public participation. Once you come to the ground and do a public participation, what you get is that, first of all, the number of people who come for public participation are very few. So you have these priorities, you get from this few number of people, you go to the assembly. Once you are in the assembly, the executive bring in their budget. They have these priorities. Of course, they will come and explain why their priorities are aligned the way they are. So clearly, their priorities are based on the whole county and not on one ward. So you as an individual in this one ward, you will not sort of like supersede their priorities, yeah? Because at the end of the day, whatever they have will still affect your ward to some extent. So it's very, on a rare occasion, that you will get a situation where it is aligned. If we come to the issue, for example, like the instances, you will get that the ECDs will still fall under your ward development budget, because most of the areas they will want these ECDs. On a higher level, the county will be doing the employment. As it is right now, even as we speak, they have not fully done the employment, they've not fully equipped these ECDs, which are still under their priorities. So you'll find in very rare instances that they will take up the issue of building an ECD, and yet they don't have teachers, they don't have equipment, they don't have all that. Secondly, the department might be aligned also to other activities, like, for example, what I said in terms of building a stadium, which might be still under sports education and sports. They might put most of their money in that stadium. So you end up having this, your 20 million budget. The mwananchi is crying, please, our children are learning in mud-thatched houses, we need an ECD. So you have to do that. It is a very big challenge. It is there. In an ideal situation, what Conrad is saying would be absolutely perfect, but that is not what's happening, and it's very hard. Unless the money that comes to the ward would be at least increased, then we'd have some sort of balance that would satisfy both the executive and the common mwananchi. Keep in mind, we have up to 10 departments. We have water, health, road, all these areas. The mwananchi wants you to see that you have touched a bit. So you will still end up spreading thin your 20 million ward development budget. Thank you.
Okay. Conrad?
Thank you. Thank you, Trevor. And I understand what Honorable Yugi is struggling with. But I would just urge all MCAs not to compartmentalize these things. They are all geared towards addressing the issues of the ward that you represent. And trust me that if you ensure that a critical part of the general basket of funds goes into frontline service delivery from the county level, and it is done in an equitable manner. How do you do this? By scrutinizing the annual plans, by scrutinizing the CIDP, by scrutinizing the county fiscal strategy paper, the budgets, and ensuring that there is a rational plan on how it's done. That's one. And then two, when there is cash disbursement schedules approved from the control of budget, that these monies do not come and are put into other priorities, such that at the end of the financial year, you find it's just 1, 2, 3 departments, maybe the favorites of the governor, which have been able to spend funds, is that these funds are distributed and they're actually implemented the way they're supposed to be. Then, as I said, of course, there's the Ward Development Fund. Then it is a complementary mechanism, not the primary mechanism of implementing funds and projects at the county level. And I know I'm sounding idealistic, scholarly, and all that. But
ground between different.
But let me just give a practical example. Yeah. I went to Mca County government, the Mca County, to see the famed public participation model. They have 3,346 village councils across the county. It may not be working perfectly, but in the planning process, that is the start of generation of ideas, you know, on what to do. That moves to the ward level, to the sub-county, and to the county. And they have elected and nominated representatives all the way. Then they have the county leaders forum at the county level, where senators, MPs, MCA'S, opinion leaders all meet and discuss. So, like for instance, the Kalamba fruit processing plant. That was an idea that came from the lower levels, but the county government was advised a project of this nature needs to be under a department, not maybe under the ward or something like that. You know, once such issues are processed, then you are able to understand which projects belongs where. And there's an understanding across the board. Now, in Makueni, I visited Kwambila Dam. This is a dam that serves around 800 households, yeah? And the county government plans and allocated resources for it because it's an area where there was a problem with access to water. But there is a project sustainability committee that manages that dam, you know? And when I visited there, their priority for this financial year, which started last month, in July, sorry, the other month, was to get solar panels to have solar-powered water pumping system instead of diesel. They were very clear about that, you know? So it tells you that once the planning has taken place at a broader level, then you have more specific and therefore more manageable ways to deal with the Ward Development Fund. So in Makueni, we have 30 million shillings per ward. It's not enough. So the county supplements that up to 120 million shillings, you know, adding from the general kitty to make the projects move. So it spends around 150 plus 30 million times the number of wards. So there's still some expenditure that goes there. But like, for instance, the capital investment in the dam came from the water department at the county level. And we can do the same in every sector, you know. And I want MCA'S in my request, and it's possible, because you have seen, as I've mentioned an example of Makueni, not just Makueni, if you move all over, you'll find projects of similar significance. To move away from that, my role is to plan these resources and especially prioritize the Ward Development Fund, because you are focusing on a minor part of the development. If you get it right from the county level, if there are obstacles, surmount them collectively as MCA'S, yeah? Then they'll be, maybe in 5, 10 years, there'll be you'll have laid procedures. Like, for instance, I can tell you, the kind of public participation channels in Makueni County, it will take a while to undo them, you know? So Governor Mutula Kilonzo Jr. comes in and finds, and Ward Development Funds are not what the MCA says we want. It's project sustainability committees together with communities that come together and agree on this, and the MCA basically facilitates, not decides. So we have an example of moving towards that ideal, in my view. So I'm challenging them.
Yeah. Now that we're talking about public participation, Gade, how can public participation be enhanced, in your view?
Yeah, maybe in my view, in the ward level, it's involving the ward people, because now they are your boss. So participating or involving them in all the committees concerning development. For example, in my case, that in my area, I think I'll choose some people to represent others in the other region, so that maybe what they will give as my role as an MCA is what I'll propose and support, and even take them up to the county government so that they can also give their view and their proposals on the development. So the participation itself is good, because even when you are doing project and you've involved them, like my friend is saying about prioritizing, they will all agree on it, and there will be no fights here and there concerning this should be done first, this should be done second. So it's a good cause, and I think it should be done completely.
Yeah. Honorable Yugi, what structure did you use for public participation? Because I heard you saying earlier on that the public participation can sometimes be very low.
Yes. In terms of the attendance, public participation happens at least 2 to 3 times in a year within the ward. So the important thing is everybody aware that this is happening. I would encourage my colleagues who are going into the assembly to ensure sensitization of public participation to the common mwananchi, because most of them will tell you, I want this to happen, but they don't know at which point are you supposed to bring this issue up for it to happen. It happens during public participation. Are they aware that public participation is happening? As much as an assembly, we go and put it in the newspaper, you ensure that people are told in barazas, but also as a leader, you go around and tell them during your meeting, public interactions, that public participation is happening. Once everyone is aware, then when they come for the public participation, is there equity in terms of, is everyone represented from the whole ward? So what we used to do is to put them in groups in terms of sub-locations. I had 5 sub-locations in my ward. Is all the sub-location represented? Once that is done, then you have to highlight the issue of prioritizing project. Each person would love to have 10 projects in their sub-location, which is not possible. You do a maximum of 1 or 2 projects. So you have to clearly state to them that this is not possible. You have to prioritize what is important for this financial year. The rest, we are able to do in the next financial. So it's a matter of just interacting with the common mwananchi and letting them know that we have to prioritize this project. And it is important to attend the public participation. When we come for other meetings like funerals, you get to see people telling you, oh, you should make us this road. Oh, we need a borehole here. But you know, this will not happen unless you come to public participation. So I think sensitization of how this happens is very important.
Yeah, Honorable Yugi, you know, I know people live in glass houses, don't throw stones. But when we go to Kisii, we've seen Governor Ratti, who have somehow found out that there are more than 256 drivers for only 82 vehicles that are functional there. Is that an indictment on the county assembly? Because ideally, you're supposed to be conducting oversight. Do you think they failed and they sleep on their job?
Yes, they did to some extent. But then, Trevor, if you come to the ground, the pressure you have, you might end up having such a situation on the ground. Because the mwananchi wants job. You might end up pushing the executive that we need more people employed. So you have such a situation, but are these people, the important thing, are these people actually employed? Are they doing something, or these are just ghost workers? If they're ghost workers, you know, now you go into issues of corruption and illegalities of such cases. But I can understand the pressure in terms of even to the governor, what is expected of you by the electorate.
Yeah, it is those ghost workers that I'm talking about, because also in Homa Bay, I think Honorable Gladys Wang has sent away human resource managers on compulsory leave as she vets through and sees who the ghost workers are. Is it possible that the ghost workers are there without the county assembly members being aware?
They could be there. You know, when you're doing your oversight role as a county assembly, if you're doing it in a theoretical manner in the assembly, you could have all this documentation being brought to you that these are people who are employed, unless you go the extra step. The assembly goes the extra step, like what the governor Simba Arati was doing in Kisii. Physically bringing the cars and we are counting and you're doing, that is the extra step that is needed for us to cure this problem of ghost workers, of corruption and all that, that extra step. But it is possible for this. And I'm not saying it's probably the governor. It could be some officers in the county government who are corrupt and they're doing this, just like Wanga sent home all these people. It could be a group of people who are doing this. So that extra step is needed in terms of oversight to ensure that corruption doesn't reach that extent and affects, of course, our resources and our budget. So true, corruption is a huge thing, and I'm very happy the incoming governors are going all out to do this. And I hope this happens across board to all the counties. Then we'll see the fruits of devolution.
All right. And Conrad, of course, the buck stops with the governor, but did we get the general structure of devolution wrong? Because it seems to be an exact replica of the national government, ending up in a very bloated kind of workforce. And it's not just in Kisii where Simbarati found out that the numbers are a bit too exaggerated. In Homa Bay, there's also the same thing. In Kiambu, Kimani Wamatangi discovered a whole junkyard of vehicles. They're just lying there. You would think that the members of county assembly would be aware of this. And if not, the senators should be aware. And if not, the members of parliament should be aware. How is it that there's still so many loopholes despite Kenyans being represented almost at 6 different categories as you head towards the counties?
No, I agree with you, Trevor. You know, in this country, we actually have a very detailed and informed appreciation of the challenges. Let me take an example of the workforce in the counties. Right before Transition Authority exited the stage in 2015, we had what we called CAPS, the rationalization of the public service at the national and county levels. Very detailed and professionally done report that guided us on how to streamline and rationalize public service at the national and county levels. And here, we wanted to deal with the workforce from the former local authorities that transited into the county governments. We wanted to deal with the workforce that came from the ministries at the national level, as well as policies on how to recruit new staff when the counties came into place. That report is somewhere gathering dust, you know, and counties actually had the duty, together with the Ministry of Devolution and other actors at the national level. The Public Service Commission has a mandate in the Constitution to set norms on public service in the counties, for the counties, in consultation with counties. But very minimal is happening there. And there is this unsustainable way of doing it, that you have these promises, you have people in the county, and basically get into office and hire because you promised and look popular. And in the process, you are bloating the workforce. And the contradiction is this. There's actually a shortage of critical services in the county government, you know? Doctors, health professionals, agricultural, you know, technical people across the sectors. I know at the end of it all, it becomes a very political process because you try to lay off one public worker, it's an issue. But that assessment actually talked about retraining, redeployment, and it's a process that need not be managed by county governments only. There is resources at the national level to assist with this, but coordination is a problem. Even holding the summit was a challenge in the outgoing government. You can count the number of summits that were held between the county governors and the president and the agenda process. And even when they were held, the agreements, including implementation of the CAPS report, fell through the window somewhere. So, for me, I call it, sorry to use this word, a self-sustaining paralysis. Yeah. You know? There's some funds which come from the treasury, and these sustain the ineffectiveness at that level. So I think the solution of these issues actually does not depend on county governments alone. There is national policies, there's norms and standards at the national level. So the national government also needs to work with counties to have a plan for rationalizing the public service.
Yeah.
Not all of it needs to be lost. Some can be retrained and redeployed. They need to have an inter-county transfer policy for critical resources or spreading of this somehow. And the plans were actually there if they were implemented. But we do very good reports, but they lie somewhere, gathering dust. Yeah.
Before I bring in Gade on this, let me bring in Honorable Yugi. Yugi, this is an interesting conversation. How is it that there's a bloated workforce in the counties and yet lack of critical personnel at the same time?
Just to add on to what Conrad said, when the county government came into place, during devolution, there was the issue of inherited workforce from the national government. And you know, when you come in as a governor, you do not want to sack people. You do not want to be seen to be sending people home. So there was the issue of taking care of this staff that came in from the national government. Then, of course, the issue of the promises the governor gave, employment, people will be employed. There are so many youth who are not employed. So you get a situation where you have all these people, they are not really, it's not clear where they are going into the government, but they are working, they are here, they are employees of the county government. So it's really a big challenge. And yet, we have issues like lack of teachers in the ECB. But you didn't have these teachers initially. You didn't inherit them. So these are lacking, as it were. You do not have enough budget to employ new teachers. So that is where we have to balance. How do we go about ensuring that the workforce is able to take care of the wananchi, and yet we still have this bloated workforce which you inherited from the previous government.
Yeah, let me bring in some of the feedback on Twitter here, and Gade, you're the one who's going to go on first. Let's bring up some of the feedback and see what you're saying here. Bob Otieno Wino says, can an MCA initiate any development like road construction without consultation with an area MP? Gade?
What I believe is that there's that conflict of interest when it comes to some roads in the area.
Yeah.
Because you may find that maybe you want to initiate development in certain roads, and then maybe the MP still is thinking of the same. But when you work together as a team, maybe the problem is solved.
Yeah.
Yes.
Conrad, on that issue of can an MCA develop and initiate a road without MP's consultation?
First of all, what does an MP have to do with the... I mean, these are legislators at the national level and the county level. As we said earlier, primary business is lawmaking, oversight, representation, and debating the budget. So, and, you know, the roads, the law divides. There is the national trunk roads, national highways, which belong to the national level. There's the county roads, class D and E.
Which is under CRB, the County Roads Board.
So, and the plan to do a road is a function of the county executive. They lay the plan to do that before the county assembly, and the county assembly says, no, you are favoring a certain region of the county. Please make it equitable. Yeah? And once that is done, the MCA also takes the views of the communities on which roads to prioritize. You rationalize the plan and implement. That is how government works. The county executive generates development plans. So the MP, I think the MCA owes the MP no explanation in terms of because they both consult the people, yeah. And if it's a county road, then the county government should do it. And as a political representative of the people, the MCA should be at the forefront to ensure that the monies allocated to this road are actually implemented, and that it's done on time and done well, and it starts assisting the people you're representing. Then at the election time, you can say, when I was here, I ensured this road is here.
Yeah.
I think that is how it should work.
All right. Honorable Yugi, your answer to Bob Owino.
Sorry, please repeat.
There was a question from Bob. Let's bring that up again on Twitter and show you what he was saying. That was a Bob Otieno or Bob Owino, I believe, wondering whether should, this is a question, can an MCA initiate any development like road construction without consultation with an area MP?
Thank you. Yes, an MCA can initiate. What we need to understand is that an MP has his docket and an MCA has their own docket. So there's no way where they will clash. However, they can work together to ensure that the development projects in your particular ward or constituency are done. So in terms of initiating a project like roads without consulting the MP, yes, that can happen. We have different level of roads. We have the county roads, we have the Kera roads, which are under the national government. So in terms of the county roads, this is solely under the county government, under the MCA. So he can clearly do it without a consultation from the MP. But in terms of the other national roads, you work in consultation with your MP if there's a road passing your area and it's a priority and your constituents really want it done. You can consult him and see if he can put it in his budget and it is done.
Okay, let's bring up another question here on Twitter. Several questions coming through, and Gade, you'll answer this one as well. Agumba Steve says, majority of MCAs get to power for purposes of getting wealthier. No wonder you'll realize a majority don't get the second term due to failed oversight role and development initiations failures. We are looking forward to a new crop expecting oversight and development. Is that true, Gade, that most MCAs get to power for purposes of getting wealthier? It's a
good question, but also I would also like to hear what Oyugi would say because she was there.
Let's start with you first.
Yes, what I think there is, it might be yes, it might be no.
Yeah.
Yes, because now the interest when you are going to vie, they are best known by you. But on the other hand, what makes maybe a lot of MCA fail in the next time for their candidature is because of the expectation the crowd have on you. So necessarily, I don't think it's about the riches and the rest. But what people expect you to do might be a lot. Then another problem which might come across is when you have a lack of good strategy and plan in the course you are delivering, also it contributes a lot. Because I was telling my friend here backstage that if you put everything on your doctrine and you say that you want to touch at least all the department with the little money and the support you have, at the end of the thing you might find that you have done nothing and people will have nothing to remember about you. So necessarily not because of the money and the rest, but those two factors. But also I've said I would like to hear what my friend will say. She was there.
As an independent candidate, how much did you use to campaign yourself?
You know, I used little money.
Give me an approximate figure.
I cannot be able to articulate and say I use this amount because some of them was our contribution in terms of material from my friends, so I cannot account very well.
Honorable Yugi, let's say from you in terms of the question that Agumba Steve has asked, that most of the MCAs go there just to get wealthier.
I think that is a perception of everybody, not only for MCAs. I think for all these other positions, MPs, you assume that you're going. Most people assume that you go for it, or even the candidate, that you will become rich. Clearly, and from hindsight, you will not become rich unless you're corrupt. From my observation and from my experience. I came from a very professional background. I'm a chemist and I have a degree in chemistry. I was working for USIT. I think my salary was actually the same as what an MCA gets at the moment. However, the expectation from the ground, the demands from the ground, you will distribute your salary to everybody. You will end up having nothing. You will end up borrowing money to be able to satisfy the demand from the ground. So getting rich, really, it doesn't come in. You have harambes, you have funerals, which your little salary of about 150,000, you have to distribute to them. Your allowances, you cannot even survive on them because of the demand from the ground. You know, once you're elected, they expect that you're going to sort out all their problems. Your home every morning is filled with people with demands. They don't have school fees, they do not. So you try to explain to them, really, your mandate is this, they will not understand. So you have to go into your pocket and you end up having nothing. keep in mind you're going to an election. An election is waiting for you. You must have money to campaign. So at the end of the day, you might end up poorer than you went in.
Is there a way, Yugi, that someone can just campaign on agenda and not have money?
Not in Luo Nyanza. I don't know about other areas. Not in Luo Nyanza. We have something that came in, they call it in Luo Yuko Jamana, which means that you give us, you shake the tree and we eat the fruit. So the fruit is that little money, that 100 shilling that you give them. They expect them when you're campaigning and you call them, you will say your agenda and they will say, we have had your agenda. Now can you give us what we came for? Can you Yuko Jamana for us, the 100 shilling? And this is not little money because you're meeting 200, 400, 500 people and you're giving at a rate of 100 shillings each. You use quite a bit of money.
So if you compare now that you're a former MCA and when you're running for office, are you richer now?
I hope to be richer now. But all this, it's actually individual, how you budget your money. And if you're not very careful, you end up becoming very poor.
Okay. Did you also have to give money, hardcore cash like this? Hashi says in her area there's Yuko Jamana, which means shake the tree so that the fruits fall.
Yeah.
Did you have to give actual cash?
Yeah. One thing is that there are so many similar ways. I think we are going together because in my own area too, the area people who are there, they taught people on that. So after you talk to people, you talk and have your articulated agendas very well. But later, another mama will ask you now, what about now the sugar in the unga?
Yeah.
So now after your discussion, you have to tell them now, this way allow, you have to sit 10 people, so that maybe I can buy that sugar or unga. But I think it's in other regions, because I have a case in Mca County, in Keharu, where an MCA was just elected. He's from Urarandia. He was just elected without even giving anything. He was even campaigning on barefooted like that. And then when other people came, they could give bread, they could give sugar, they could give unga. Himself, he could just come up with a matchbox and tell them, now you know after being given all this, you need this. He's an MCA from Raradia. It's called Minji. And then you tell them, after all these people give you this, now you need this matchbox, which costs just maybe 5 or 2 bob. But that's one case in many. But I would pray in Kenya, we get to a level of democracy such as other countries outside there, and maturity in terms of politics, like South Africa, whereby you'll vie with agenda and you are seen just like a normal person. In maybe here in South Africa, and I was there once, that and a politician will walk in the town just like that, and nobody will think about it. But in our case, when we are seen on the ground, my friend, there's the aspect of chai. But that is Kenya.
Even in the UK, they use public transport, the trains all the time.
Yes, that's what maybe I think Kenya we get to that point once, but it's a process.
Okay. Conrad, is that all about civic education, or is it the level that we are in as a country, a third world state, where there are actually genuine cases where individuals are in need at that particular moment, and all they see are their leaders? They have no other choice.
I totally agree. It's actually about a culture, that was perpetuated, unfortunately, by politicians, and it feasts on the vulnerabilities of people and immediate needs, but it hides the bigger picture. So I was talking to a politician, and of course, he got into office using the same means that the honorable members here have described. But once in office, he's a governor, he was actually challenging them in the campaign for the current term, that you expect me to live here, having given you money, where do you think I'm going to get it from? I'm going to get it from the kitty that is supposed to bring you medicines and build schools and all that. So I think it's not an issue of sitting in town halls and telling them don't ask money from politicians. It is the politicians themselves doing what is required and the people appreciating. Sorry, I have to use Makueni example again. One of the things I had is that actually Governor Kivuda could walk in the village and no one would bother because he's basically like them. He attends the village council meetings and contributes ideas. And people live without expectation. His Excellency is here, so tutakula vizuri after the meeting, you know. So I think politicians themselves, especially while in positions of responsibility, can begin to change that culture. It will take a painfully slow process, but I think where we are, every election season, the public psyche is that, and basically it's a system that has manipulated vulnerabilities in a way that people do not know that it has been said they are selling their future for the next 5 years. And you see, once you inculcate in the politician's head that he has bought you, then for the next 5 years, even accountability is not there. Say, come on, I'm trying to recoup what I spent in the campaigns. Yet that is not what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honorable Yugi, let me bring you back on this conversation. Is it just a culture that has to be changed by the legislators themselves? Because Conrad and I have not been on that side of the divide. But can you just decide not to give money as a person? Does you also give your final remarks on this?
Well, Trevor, it's a culture that has been there for very many years. It's a culture that we found going on. I don't think it will be as easy as we would want it to be, that I would wake up tomorrow and start campaigning and say that I will not give people money. It's something that they expect, and it has been ongoing for a very long time. So just like any other culture, for it to change, it will take a lot of work, it will take a lot of effort and a lot of time. It's not something impossible, but I think the most important thing and why people really do this is because of lack of money, the lack of economic empowerment. If we would go out of our way as leaders to ensure that our people are empowered, there's no poverty and hunger, then this thing would go down, because they ask for very little, 50, 100 shillings to go and buy unga. If someone had a source of income where they would get this money, then they would come and listen to your policies, and these 100 shillings would not be the main agenda. So I think it is something that will take quite a bit of time, and I think we as leaders should be at the forefront of ensuring that this happens, that it comes to an end, and then we will get better leaders. Otherwise, we will get leaders just because someone gave you 100 shillings. Then you go and elect them, or you elect a bad leader, you are convinced to elect someone because of 100 shillings, and we leave a better person who would have done for us quite a bit in terms of development. So I think it's a culture that needs to be changed.
All right. Yeah, let me take closing remarks, Conrad, very briefly.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Trevor. I think this has been the most useful discussions. In terms of my parting shot, I'm not in any way undermining or minimizing the challenges that MCAs and generally elected representatives face soon after they get into office. The demands are overwhelming, and sometimes justifiably so, because of the level and the nature of needs from our citizenry. But I just want to implore the MCAs who will soon be joining and carrying out county assembly business, as a priority first, to look at how systems at the county level work in terms of the plans, in terms of the priorities. Do the budgets address that? And more importantly, do the plans of the budget and the actual execution reflect the priorities, which many of the MCAs actually know. Once they do that, they will have solved the most critical annex that is required here, which is critical resources going to the needs and priorities identified by the people. Okay. And then, of course, the World Development Fund and the resources which they have some influence can do a complementary role, not the primary role in service delivery and development.
All
and
right.
this will not be achieved today. It will be achieved maybe some time to come, but it has to be perfected from now. Thank you.
Okay, Gade, closing remarks, very briefly.
Thank you, Trevor. So I want to appreciate for this platform. Thank you so much, and also appreciate people from my own region, Gaturi, for believing in me and the immense support and family, everything else. And I want to tell them that the choice they made was accurate and everything gonna be well. And Kenyans have shown a very good resilience in terms of adapting to the system. Now people are working, there are no tensions, so thank you so much for that. And I believe that they will see the leaders who they elected and the leaders who deliver. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much for making time this morning. Honorable Judy Oyugi, former MCA East Assembly in Rarieda and former Deputy Majority Leader in Siaya County. Thank you so much for making time. Honorable Gade Wanjeri, MCA-elect Gaturi Ward, Kiharu, asante sana for making time. And Conrad Bosire, Devolution and Governance Expert, thank you so much for making time. We're expecting Ekodida, and I may have mentioned that he was the MCA-elect from Mathare North. I beg your pardon for that. I meant he ran for that seat of the MCA in Mathare North, all right? Let's take a quick break. When you come back, we head straight to the Supreme Court, where there's a lot of preparations happening right now. Today is the final submissions from both sides. There were some questions that the Supreme Court judges asked, and they've given the respondents 15 minutes first to respond to them, and then they move on to the final submissions. And yesterday, CJ Martha Koome mentioned that they should be done by around midday so that they retreat to write their final judgment. Remember, their ruling is final on the presidential petition. Let's take a quick break. We're back in just a bit.